And the reverse cag delete works great. Just cutting up. Welcome back. We're here. We're gonna work on this stuff today. We got a drive shaft sitting here. This came out of the Camaro. We got another one sitting in the back of the truck. It's got the stock BMW drive shaft. So I'm trying to decide whether I would like to modify this one or just start fresh with a one piece. But I'm gonna see if I can make something work with this first before we get too excited about doing a one piece, because that's going to be, you know, at least $1,000. Whereas this one, I might be able to modify it to use this center bearing right here, and then all we'd have to do is put a BMW flange on that end for the differential. So I'd really like to try to make that work, and but at the same time, I'll get a price from Sydney Trans it is now, and yeah, we're also gonna, I think the main thing we're gonna start with, because it's kind of interesting, is the shifter. I've got some good ideas. I'm gonna pull all that stuff out, and we'll get going on something here. Woohoo! Awesome. Well, I just recorded 5 minutes of talking and bullshitting about what we're gonna do, and I didn't even hit the record button. So this is actually, oh, excuse me, this is actually take two. We're sitting in our beautiful sedan here. Just a wonderful piece of German masterminds. Really good stuff. So we're looking at the old shifter hole, the old throat hole. So this is my plan. As you can see down here, we have the trans is there. Everything's there. Up this way, right up there, is the shifter rail. So that's the output for the trans, for the shifter. It's right about up here. What we're gonna do is, we have the old linkage from the Camaro setup. We're gonna use that piece that connects to the trans, and we're gonna run it this way. We're gonna cut it. I got some turnbuckle actually that fits the ear of this quite nicely. This is Amazon special, 70 bucks. Lots of mixed reviews. I've heard some people really like them, some people absolutely hate them because it's junk, and it is junk, but we're gonna fucking beef it up and we're gonna make it work. So my plan is to have that linkage coming back from the Camaro. Then we'll have the ear. I got a turnbuckle, which is, once we grind it down, it's gonna fit in this quite nicely. And sorry, I'm shining my light at you. And we just have to get that measurement right. So you can see here this tube is pretty much dead center, so we're going to use that as a reference for where the linkage needs to end. And once we get that done, everything's pretty much good to go. The one problem I didn't see coming was that even with the throw adjusted as short as possible, it's too long, and we want as much throw as, well, not as much throw, but we want this to be a short shifter. So if I put it down, you can see it hits the trans. So what we're gonna have to do is just make a spacer. So we're just gonna get probably a 2-inch length of, this is 4.5 inches circumference. Or is that diameter? Fuck, I can't remember. I need to go back to school, boys. We're gonna get some 4.5 inch pipe, 4.5 inch diameter, and we're just gonna make a 2-inch spacer. We'll probably weld that pipe to this, so that'll bring this up nicely. It'll bring it up to like there, so we don't have to worry about hitting the trans. We'll get that distance that we need. I'll get that piece of pipe, I'll weld it to this flange. We're still gonna use the supplied sandwich flange underneath, and we'll just sandwich it down, and then I'll probably tack that spacer in a couple places just to give it a little bit more rigidity. Whoever welded in this Chase Bay's hydraulic handbrake here didn't do the greatest job. As you can see, it's pretty gnarly. And I think that spacer will even help with the rigidity of this tunnel, because it's kind of wiggly. It's not the worst, but it really could be better for sure. So yeah, that's where we're at. Because I don't have that pipe for the spacer, which we're gonna use for here, we'll start underneath today. We're gonna get that linkage all figured out, and that's kind of, I figure that's the hard part, or at least the harder part. So we'll get that out of the way. Hopefully later in this video I'll have that piece of pipe, and we just finish the shifter, so we can work on the get the phone call over here, so we can work on the drive shaft length. Okay, so here we are under the car. We got our truck, the car is down up on the hoist. We got our trans down pretty much as far as it'll go without unbolting the engine. And so we have just enough room to work up in here. So as you can see, we're at the back of the trans here. There's our hole. You'll see here this little tube in front of me. Above that, back there, you'll see this slider. Let's see if I can get the light on it and point at it at the same time. So here's the tube that we saw looking down from the top of the tunnel. And then back here, this guy, that's our shift rod output. So we want to put a linkage on this, and we're going to use the stock one, come to about here, and we're going to put our ears for our chassis mount shifter. And theoretically, it's going to work well, I hope. So here we have the chassis, the TR6060 stock Camaro shift linkage. So what we're gonna do is this end goes to the axle shifter, and this end is what goes to the trans. So we're gonna use this piece. What we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it here, somewhere right around there, or here. We'll have to take some measurements. And I picked up this galvanized turnbuckle. We are going to take one of these ends and we're going to grind it down. If you see here, it's just too thick to get our chassis mount shifter in there. So we're going to take a grinding wheel. We're going to carefully grind down each side, so it's, you know, snug, not too snug. You want this to be able to move nice. So just enough for it to fit in there and not be snug or not snug. Fuck, I'm all over the place here. The cool thing is this bolt that it even came with fits through the chassis shifter absolutely perfectly. It's the perfect size. It's not threaded, so that's nice. And yeah, and then so we'll cut this off and we'll weld that. We'll grind away the galvanization, obviously, and we'll weld that to the end of this rod. And then we have our shift linkage. Yeah, so the first thing we'll do is we'll take this shackle apart. We'll get this to fit proper, and then we'll cut this, and we'll just start making some measurements about, you know, where we're gonna friggin' weld this thing. I've got a good idea. Basically, when I was looking straight down that hole, I made a pinpoint of exactly where the center of this should be sitting. We're gonna tack it and not final weld and just test it out, because I guess I pretty much have two chances, because unless I buy another shackle, because we can cut this to where we think it's gonna work, get everything lined up, tack this together. Whoa, fucking cat-like ninja reflexes right there. Get this all welded up. If it ends up being too short for any reason, we can use this side and try it a second time and make it a little bit longer. So we got 2 chances to make this work. If we don't make it work, then we'll just go get another one of these. They're cheap. My idea for the other end, the chassis mount shifter side, like I said, you don't want this to be too tight on the shifter. So I'm gonna double nut it, crank that down. We'll thread lock these guys just so it's at the right tension, because we don't want to start pulling these ears together and crushing this guy. So we'll start by friggin' doing some cutting and getting things ready here. So I just took a couple of different measurements. I wanted to get linkage length eye to eye. First way I did is I used my caliper, stuck it up in there, tried to get a good idea of exactly where the eye to eye needs to be, and I came out with 5 1/4. Then I used a string line as a second way of measuring exactly where I thought I wanted it to be, and it came out to 5 inches long. So we're gonna start with 5 1/4, and because we can always go shorter. Give that a try first, and we'll get to some cutting here. Put this up like this. That way we can find our eye to eye measurement and cut from there. My buddies say, why do you always have holes in your sweater, Olive? That's why. This stupid bench table is too high and this vise is too big, so, or I'm just a short piece of poop. One of the other. So that's what it's gonna look like, boys. Just like that. And we'll friggin' make sure you grind the galvanization off. I'm pretty sure it's pretty toxic for you to weld, but I could be wrong. I'm not a welder. I ain't any sort of anything. I'm just a fisherman. So we'll weld that together. Okay, that's all we're gonna do for now. It's just a couple tacks, but that's what she looks like. Pretty simple. All we gotta do now is make this go in there. So we're gonna use a zip disc, just so we can ever so slightly and keep a nice flat surface. Get this down to the size we want, right? So we'll move back over to the other bench now. We'll grab our eye protection, because that's important. Turn this off for now. Here is the shift linkage. So we need a 2-inch spacer or some sort of size spacer. I haven't figured it out yet. I don't have any pipe here, and I want to test fit this tonight. So I just cut this old MAF sensor up, so we're gonna go up into the car and put this down the tunnel, or down the shifter hole, and we're gonna hook up our linkage. But first, I'm too lazy to bolt the transaw, move the trans jack, drop the car, get in the car. I also don't have a step ladder. So I'm gonna do some pretty greasy stuff over here. As you can see, my little step ladder is already ready to rock. So I'm gonna record this in case I die. Oh! Well, that didn't work. Gonna have to drop the car, guys. Really wish I had a step ladder. I guess I'll just do some ninja stuff instead. Just getting old, I don't feel like climbing anymore. Getting old and worn out. I didn't die. There it is. Connected to the TR6060. Connected to the Amazon Special. So I'll hook this trans back up to the chassis. We'll drop the trans jack, we'll drop the car, and we'll go up there and play with it and see how it feels. Pretty excited. I'm sitting inside the car here, and things look pretty good. 2 inches is the right amount of space for that spacer. You can see down in there my template spacer, which is an old math that's making this sit up high. That's neutral there, so it's perfect. Like, this might be, it's hard to tell, like it's until it's mounted I can't really tell because it's so tight. The trans is so tight, like there's no way I can hold this and shift this at the same time, and my hand just pivots and it goes from third to fourth. But I think we're totally on the right track here. That linkage is going to work great. I just need to get the proper ring and actually bolt this down, because there's no way I can shift without you know, having everything tightened down, because it's just too much leverage for me to hold this. But that's neutral there, and I think it works great. Tomorrow we'll pick up some pipe for that. We'll try and find something in the realm that's going to work for us. We'll get some longer bolts, because now the ones that came with the kit aren't going to be long enough to go right through. So we need to get like at least, this is 2 inches, call that 2 1/4. We'll probably get 2.5 or 2 3/4 inch long bolts to go in here. M10s it looks like. And yeah, so I think now we'll go take a look at Driveshaft stuff, because that's definitely the next big one. That's gonna be the next big tissue, if you will. Here's my 2 Driveshafts. I've got Camaro, BMW. I'm really surprised that the center support bearings, or what else are they called? Center support bearings. There's a bunch of different names for these. Right now, it's escaping me. But that slip works pretty dang good. This slip has been superheated. That slip's been melted out on the BMW drive shaft. So I got the drive shafts figured out. Going to take them to the drive shaft shop tomorrow. Shouldn't be a problem. We're gonna just make a one piece out of these 2. Don't think I'm gonna have an adapter for the TR6060. I think we're just gonna go from there to a U-joint, to a slip at the other end, and the BMW serviceless U-joint, which apparently you can service. So that's all figured out. And I got the shifter stuff. I got that spacer that I was talking about. This is just 4.5 inch steel pipe. Got 2 inches cut, and so that's all we need. It's painted up and everything, but I'm gonna do a little bit more welding here. So here we have this is the sandwich plate that goes underneath. I'm gonna actually weld these bolts to the bottom of that, so that the bolts don't fall through, and it'll be easier. I'll just put the sandwich plate up there and go on the other side, and then on the top side, this is going to be like that, and the shifter is going to be welded to the spacer. So I'm going to weld these 2 together, weld those bolts on there, just stick that in the underside, stick it up through here, and bolt those down. I might even weld, once that's all bolted and in, I might even tack this onto the chassis, or create like a couple gussets with bolt heads in them, and that way you got a couple more, you know, just to strengthen it up. I might do something there, but anyways, pretty simple. I'm gonna get to some welding and some grinding here and see what we can come up with. She's all welded up, so I just welded this spacer on the chassis mount shifter, and then I decided with the crush plate that I would weld the bolts to the bottom, because that way I can stick it up through and you can tighten them from the top without having someone else to hold a wrench from the bottom, which might be kind of handy. Yeah, so I guess, well, we have this adjustability here. This screws out. So we're gonna stick it in the car and kind of play with it here and see how we feel. Boys, check this out. I'm actually more stoked than I thought I was gonna be. I was pretty stoked about this little plan here, but it worked even better than I thought. Like, I got the right measurement on the linkage on the first go. One thing I had to do was that 2-inch spacer that we put in there, it was actually a little bit too tall. So when I adjusted my shifter adjustment down, I actually ended up not having enough thread. Like, it was just barely any threads up into the shifter. So I actually shortened the spacer by, like, I don't know, just over a 1/4 inch. But and the reverse cag delete worked great, just cutting that spring. Like, it's just got just the right amount of spring action going into reverse, but every gear feels just great, feels solid. You know, the short throw worked out really well. Like, I'm pretty stoked on that. Like, I think that's gonna be awesome. Like, look at it, it even matched the angle on my on my hydro here, so can't beat that. One and done basically, and it feels solid. Like, it doesn't feel sloppy at all. Like, when I do that, I can feel like it's spring, it's not loose. Like, I can feel the stuff in the transmission moving. It's just solid. 6 and reverse. It's awesome. So I highly suggest that for anybody doing this. Like, $70 on Amazon, 70 Canadian dollars, which don't mean anything. 70 Canadian dollars. I got my buddy, he was gonna give me that piece of pipe for free for the spacer. I gave him a case of beer because that's just the kind of guy I am, and a $10 turnbuckle, and you got yourself what seems to be like a great shifter. I mean, we'll see what happens when we drive it, but I can tell just by it's just shifting great. So we're gonna tighten these guys up, and yeah, Bob's your uncle. We're laughing, guys. Shifter is done. Didn't even have to spend much time on it, so yeah. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Reverse. Seems solid in there too. Like, I might not even weld it. Like, yeah, this all seems solid, so might just tighten up these guys a little bit more and call her quits. Anyways, I think I might leave it at that for the episode. Nice and short and sweet. Drive shaft, I just really wanted to cover shifter and drive shaft for this episode. I mean, there's not much more I can do with the drive shaft. I just got to take it to the shop, get them to cut something up for me and put her on the balancer, because we want to run a balanced drive shaft. Is very important. yeah, on the next episode, we will be starting to wire. I think we'll start running wires. I can't think of really much else that needs to be done. Like, just a quick think, we got to put in the terminator. It's not a big deal. We got to get our fittings back from the TIG welder who welded our steam port fittings. We have to, yeah, just do the wiring and that. Wait for the drive shaft. I might make sort of a fake drive shaft, like a piece of wood or something, so we can build the exhaust. It'd just be nice to have something in there to, you know, make sure we're giving the drive shaft enough clearance. What else? Got to put the front end back together, and at that point we'll be able to fire it up and roll. But we really want to, I really want to put in those subframe reinforcements like ASAP, because I do not want to be, I don't want to get this thing rolling out there and have everything run great and be worried about ripping the subframe out of the rear end. So we got to get that done. But anyways, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you on the next step. Adios.